Yeah, absolutely, Stephen. It has been quite a day here in Grand Rapids, remembering the former First Lady, Betty Ford. As you can see behind me, a few people are still strolling out of the Gerald R. Ford Presidential Museum, where people have been strolling past her casket since 7 o'clock tonight. It has certainly been one special homecoming for Mrs. Ford. The casket carrying former First Lady Betty Ford arrived at the Gerald R. Ford International Airport around 5 o'clock. Family and dignitaries, including Governor Rick Snyder, greeted Betty Ford's family when they arrived at Air Force 2. Military pallbearers carried the casket, and Boy Scouts were on hand to salute the First Lady because her husband, the late Gerald R. Ford, was a big supporter.
He was an Eagle Scout, and that's pretty high. It's just cool to have him be a Boy Scout and to be a president.
The motorcade left the airport and traveled here to downtown Grand Rapids, where this black hearse delivered her casket to the Gerald R. Ford Presidential Museum. People were allowed inside to pay their last respects. This Detroiter was certainly moved by it all.
I thought it was a great opportunity to be able to see somebody who's been very influential in our country's history, and a chance to be able to see something that maybe most people wouldn't be able to.
She will lie on repose again tomorrow morning from 7 to 10 a.m. Mrs. Ford's second funeral service will be tomorrow at Grace Episcopal Church at 2 p.m. and she will be laid to rest back at the Presidential Museum tomorrow at 3:30, right next to her husband. Many people wanted to sign Mrs. Ford's memorial books because she meant so much to this country and to Michigan.
Mrs. Ford has been a role model, I think, for a lot of women, and she's been always very open with her feelings and connected to the people, I think, because she's a very warm individual.
So many people love Mrs. Ford across this country, and especially right here in Michigan, and especially here in Grand Rapids. You're looking inside the Presidential Museum right now at Mrs. Ford's casket. And for tomorrow's funeral at 2 o'clock, a number of dignitaries will be on hand, including former First Lady Barbara Bush. Dick Cheney's wife Lynn will give the eulogy, and former President Bill Clinton is also expected to be at tomorrow's funeral. Right now, though, I'm going to turn the attention to my colleague Tom Waite, because he talked to a lot of people from the Detroit area, actually, who traveled a long way to pay their final respects.
As you can see, people came out by the thousands from near and far to say goodbye to Mrs. Ford, willing to wait in this very long line.
I am a history teacher at Detroit Public Schools, so a lot of history behind her and her husband.
Henry Ford High School teacher Ronda Ellis waits with her daughters 12 and 14 to say a final farewell to a woman whose influence spanned the country and the world. Ronda says Betty Ford's courage to talk about issues like breast cancer and addiction made her special and brave.
That kind of stuff was hidden, and she just brought it to the forefront just to let everybody know that, you know, there is help out there for you.
Ford also touched Ronda as a feminist.
Women, we're out there and we're strong and we're a force in the community, and Betty Ford definitely was a force in the community for all women.
Also waiting their turn, Dorothy Downton from Monroe and her close friend Carolyn Crick, who made the trip all the way from Minnesota to say goodbye to Mrs. Ford.
I just feel that she's just a very genuine person of great integrity and great compassion.
As far as I'm concerned, I admire her greatly for having the courage to bring the breast cancer awareness into the public eye. I think she has saved many, many women's lives as a result of that. That inspired me right from the very beginning.
Dorothy says Mrs. Ford spotlighted issues that were taboo.
Especially in that era. Even, for instance, the breast cancer, it was not even talked about in families, perhaps, but hardly even with friends at that point in time. And she just brought it all out in the open, and it has saved millions of lives, I believe.
The people we talked to say obviously it was a long wait, but it is worth it. They say this is a woman who was so important in history, and they intend to pay their respects. Reporting from Grand Rapids, I'm Tom Waite, Channel 7 Action News.
All right, thank you so much, Tom. And in lieu of flowers, the Ford family wants everyone to know they want you to donate to a charity. And we do have a list of all of the charities the Ford family supports on our website. It's right on the homepage at WXYZ.com. And don't forget, we're going to have live coverage of Mrs. Ford's funeral tomorrow all day on Action News, beginning on Action News this morning at 4:30.